What's going on? Welcome back into another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Happy Veterans Day to all of you who have served our country or are currently serving our country. We're grateful for all of your service on this Friday, November 11th of 2022, 6:15 p.m. Lucas and Tyler hanging out with you tonight. Glad to have you back on the pod, Ty. It's been a hot minute.
I realized at some point this week that I'm only going to be on one episode a week now.
Yeah, our rock is gone. You were our rock, and now you abandon us. I'm personally hurt.
I got swept under the current.
I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter, Tyler_Platt for Tyler, FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas, TikTok, and YouTube, where you should be subscribed and have your notifications turned on so you get notified when episodes like this come out and our other YouTube shorts come out, and to the podcast as well. Join our Chalkboard community full of league winners. We are answering questions over there every single day. If you got a waiver wire question, trade question, player prop question, even one of us will hopefully answer it. Otherwise, we have a community full of people who would be more than happy to help you out down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are listening to. We got a great show today, Ty. Starts of the week. We got some player props. We have a special guest joining us even. But unfortunately, we have to. We don't have to.
No, we don't. We don't have to, but we should.
We should start
but should
with.
We really?
Here's what we're going to do. Thursday night football recap. The Falcons and Panthers played in 15 to 20 to 25 to 30 mile an hour winds with rain. And here's what I'll say. Deonta Foreman, that's your Thursday night football recap. 31 rushing attempts, 130 plus yards and a score. He was really the only player worth even considering last night. Cordero Patterson was, but he disappointed.
Very
much so. Those splits shocked me.
Yeah, well, and Tyler Algier getting 8 carries for 20 yards. Excuse me, something was not going right. I don't know if it was blocking. I don't know if it was the running backs. I don't know if it was the play calling even. That was a horrific game for the Falcons, and that could not have gone any worse for them.
You know how many total yards Tyler Algier had last night?
20.
No.
Oh, he had 13.
No, he had 3 total yards. He had 3 receptions for negative 17 yards.
That makes me want to throw my headphones. What the heck?
They just kept checking it down to him, and the Panthers had no issue swallowing it up because everything was kept close to the line of scrimmage last night. Everything, which makes sense because they're playing in hurricane-like effects. I mean, if you had any overs on the game, that was silly of you. I'm like, sorry, like that's what that like. This was like the news of the century going into the game. I mean, I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just stating facts.
Well.
I'm not calling anybody out. I just stated a fact and said if you had any overs on last night's game besides Deonta Foreman, Cordero Patterson, I would have understood a little bit. Like if you would have had the running backs over, I understood that. But anybody else, a passing game, receivers, tight ends, anybody, like that was the storyline going in, is that this was going to be a tsunami. It was going to be a hurricane type game with high winds and rain.
Yeah, it was going to be a monsoon like we saw in Chicago.
Yeah, and this game produced exactly that. And Deonta Foreman was the only fantasy relevant player that you started that did anything for you. Marcus Mariota, 18.7 fantasy points. Not a bad turnout. He'll probably be top 14 this week. But again, he pretty much did that all. 43 rushing yards certainly helped elevate him to that. Is that enough Thursday Night Football recap? I don't want to talk about that game anymore.
Let's just move on.
Yeah, let's bring the guest. We have a special guest joining us for our next segment. We're going to discuss some injury news leading into the weekend that you need to know. Let's bring in the guest. Alrighty, we are back now. We have a special guest joining the show, Rahul Jonty, host of the Fantasy Doctor Show on YouTube. Great friend of the podcast. He's going to discuss some big injury news with us. Rahul, thanks for hopping on the pod tonight, man.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Super excited for the show. First time on the show. Pretty excited. Tyler and Lucas, thanks to you guys. You guys stopped on my podcast a couple of weeks back for Tyler, and you came back on Wednesday. So it was fun. I think we had a fun conversation. So super happy to be on your pod.
Yeah, no, it was great. We thoroughly enjoyed hopping on the show, talking some props with you. We'll dive into some more of the injury stuff today. Maybe some of our viewers are more familiar with the fancy doctors of Dr. Jesse Morris. He does a lot of the injury updates for you all. But Rahul, you're kind of like the right-hand man, it seems like, of Dr. Morris in terms of delivering all the news to the people on your show. So we're grateful to have you on to help us kind of dissect everything that's going on in the league right now. The big player we need to talk about, Josh Allen, didn't practice Wednesday, Thursday. I believe he did practice. He was scheduled to practice today last I looked at the time of this recording. What do you have on Josh Allen for us?
So Josh Allen did practice today on a limited basis. So I think they're pushing for him to play, or he is pushing for to play. But to be on a safer side, I think teams should maybe rest him like a week or two. Vikings doesn't have a great defense, 21st defense ranking, so they should probably play it safe. But in terms of injury, he has a UCL sprain. So UCL sprain are pretty much like a partial tear. And again, he can manage. It's more of a pain tolerance, but the risk is the re-injury, right? So does the Buffalo Bills want to rest 1 or 2 weeks and win the Super Bowl, or take a risk of him missing the rest of the season? I think it comes down to that. But I think Josh Allen, there is a possibility he's playing this weekend.
That's just, as a Vikings fan, we would rather not hear that. Give Case Keenum the Minneapolis Miracle revenge game. That's what we want.
I think that would be like revenge game would be great. I think Keenum had a good, he made fun of Josh Allen in his practice yesterday. He was like jumping around like Josh Allen, moving around. That was funny. But I think Josh Allen's pushing hard, but there is a possibility 50-50. I think it's a coin toss for now.
Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, Josh Allen managers, you should have a backup ready to go. But there is a chance that sounds like Allen could play this weekend.
But again, even if he plays, I don't think the passing game would be there. They'll probably use more of his running style play. I don't think he's going to throw like a 70-yard bomb. So it's going to be like the gameplay is going to be different even if he plays.
No, that makes 100. That totally makes sense. Definitely no need to blow out his elbow even more than it already is right now. So another stud, I believe he did return to practice today, Jonathan Taylor. What updates do we have on him?
So Jonathan Taylor is definitely healthier. He's not 100% yet, but good thing for Jonathan Taylor owners and the Colts in terms of fantasy perspective is every other running back is injured. I don't think Deion Jackson is coming back. I think he's out for the week. And then their third, he was Jordan Wilkins. He comes in, but he's not super effective. So Jonathan Taylor is going to be back maybe like 80-85%. But he's definitely healthier than the previous weeks.
Well, that's good to hear because Jonathan Taylor managers are clamoring to get something out of him after spending a first overall pick on him.
They play the Raiders, so I think that'll be an interesting game. Jeff Saturday was his McDaniels, who is saving his life, I guess. If not, he's going to lose his job. So I think it'll be a good game.
Definitely a good game for Jonathan Taylor to come back to. Vegas has not been great against running backs this year. Even if we can get 85% Jonathan Taylor, that's progress because we don't want to be without him any more than we have to be.
100%.
Guy who definitely is not 85% healthy, Darren Waller, was put on IR earlier this week. He's been struggling with a hamstring. Is there any other insight you can give us on that? Because it seemed like he was making progress, limited practice, but still found his way onto the IR.
Yeah, I think so he has a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries are again, I'm not the expert. Dr. Morse kind of explains in his videos. So hamstring injuries are really tough to come back from. And if the rehab is not done properly, it's like the re-injury risk is more. And I think that's what happened to Darren Waller. So he's put on IR. I think his fantasy season is done. I think he's done for the season. I think people should go ahead, drop him, and pick up a back end. I don't know. He's done. And the bad news for Raiders is Hunter Renfrow is in IR too.
Right.
So I think Devontae Adams is going to get maybe, I don't know, 10,000 targets this week.
Yeah, right. His target share will go from 40 to 50. That's what it will be.
Yeah. So yeah, I think so. Darren Waller. I think he's kind of in the same spectrum as Julio Jones with the hamstring injury. So
Sure.
that's a history of hamstring injuries, and I think that's why they didn't have a choice. They had to put him in IR.
And it seems like hamstring injuries, I am no doctor either, but they're non-linear. They're not the same every single time. That's kind of what I gather from them.
Yeah, but again, it's hamstring injuries are notorious for re-injury. You've seen with one of the player we want to chat about is Keenan Allen too, right? He has the same hamstring injury. Keenan Allen, Julio Jones. Julio Jones, the last 3-4 years has not finished a season. He's not played even 10 games in a season. Yep. Again, it's the same hamstring over and over again. And players think they can come back faster, but I think a proper rehab is needed, especially during the season. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, let's move on to another player with, as you mentioned him already, Keenan Allen. We'll come back to Kyler Murray, but since we're on the topic of hamstring injuries, let's talk Keenan Allen because it's looking like he's not going to play again this week.
Yeah, I think he's not going to play this week. I think 2 weeks back they had a bye week. He was on line to play last week, but he came out and said he retweaked his hamstring during the bye week. I don't know what he did. I don't know, was it during practice or an off-field activities, but I think he re-injured, and he came out and even said he won't play unless he's 100%. So I think that's kind of not a great news. Everyone's frustrated. I have Keenan Allen in one of my teams. He's been the most frustrating player. I don't know who's going to come back earlier, Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. So unfortunately for Chargers, I think I wouldn't be. I think according to Dr. Morse, I think we wouldn't be surprised if he's not going to play the next 2 weeks too. So we'll see. That's a frustrating injury, dude. I think Keenan Allen is terrible. I don't know. It's just frustrating.
It's been frustrating. It's been frustrating. Tyler, you looked like you want to jump in.
Why did they play him the week before the bye? It made
I know.
No sense.
And he played two or three routes he ran and then went back. I don't know. Yeah.
His snap count was incredibly low that week. I'm pulling up his snap share right now, but if I recall correctly, he didn't even play that much that week, so it didn't make sense for them to get him back out onto the football field. Yeah, he played 32% of the snaps that week.
Yep, I think he came in, ran one post route, and then got injured. I think he probably felt he tweaked something, came back in.
Yeah,
but frustrating injury.
It's probably Staley's analytics coming back to bite him again. He said the analytics say that you should play this week, so we're going to play you no matter what.
Knowing Staley, that's probably how it worked. Kyler Murray does have a hamstring injury. I know we went from Waller with a hamstring to Keenan Allen with a hamstring, and we come back to Kyler, but Kyler has a hamstring injury. What updates do we have on that? Because that just came up on the injury report earlier this week.
Yeah, I think it came up yesterday, and we had no further information as of this afternoon. But Kiff Kingsbury, he came out and said it's a game time decision whether to play Kyler or not. So I think he'll still play, but his rushing yards take the under. I don't know if Underdog or PricePicks going to have, but I definitely know FanDuel has the rushing yards in him, so I would probably take the under. I don't think he's going to run. James Conner is looking healthier, so they're probably going to run the ball more. Kyler is a game time decision. But I think my personal view, I think he's going to play.
Sure. Well, and you would need him to against the Rams. Because this game won't be close unless if Kyler Murray plays.
100. Yeah, I don't know who's their backup. I don't even know who their backup is.
Is it Colt McCoy?
I think so.
I believe it is still.
Oh my God! Yeah, see, I think it's it's a must-win game for both the Cardinals and the Rams. So
yes, yeah,
we'll see.
And with how bad Arizona's offensive line is, as you said, Kyler won't be scrambling. He won't have the stamina, the durability to scramble most likely. Tyler, you come up with an answer for us?
It is Colt McCoy.
Let's go. Good one, Tyler. Good one.
Let's wrap up with a few other names here, Rahul. We have Aaron Jones as well. He popped up with an ankle injury this week. You chatted about it on your show a little bit on Wednesday, but what do we have now?
So I think it was against the Lions. It was kind of like a routine tackle. He fell down and hobbled back to the sidelines.
Yep.
Went in, got an X-ray, came back, and he was ruled out. No further information. But I think they took scans on Monday. Everything came in negative. So that was like a great news. So Aaron Jones got super lucky. Looks like it was like a mild lateral ankle sprain. So he had limited practice both Wednesday and Thursday, and a full practice today. I think he's going to play this week. But I don't know, like how to in terms of fantasy, you guys should hop on in. Like I don't know how he's going to perform. Like the Packers play Dallas. Dallas defense is really good. It's no joke. So it's going to be tricky. But again, if you have Aaron Jones, you have to start him because I think he's good to go this week.
Yeah, I would agree. If he's good to go, it's just a mid-lateral sprain and we don't have to worry about it. You have to fire him up. I'm not excited for the matchup personally from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, and it's going to be cold.
Yes, and it's going to be cold. Yeah, that thing could. Yeah, it's not the same as a muscle injury, right? Where those could tighten up in a hurry. But against Dallas, I know there's no Romeo Doubs, and they could get him involved in the passing game more. But I'm not looking to play him this week. I don't know about you. Well, you have to start him if he's on your team, but I have very low expectations this week. Where are you at, Ty?
Yes. I just, my mind goes to then like, well, they have AJ Dillon. So does AJ Dillon get bulk of the work or the carries or whatever? But AJ Dillon himself has not been doing so great this year. So like, if you've got Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon, like you're kind of in a pickle in this one. And again, with Aaron Jones, you have to play him, but you can't expect your typical running back 1, running back 2 production from him this week.
I think Aaron Jones, like Lucas mentioned, is going to get passing game, like especially with so many injuries. Literally everyone's injured. Amari Rodgers ruled out for the game too. So it's just there are too many injuries for the Packers. So I think Aaron Jones he'll get like at least 10, 12 points for sure, I think.
That's good to go. Good to know that he'll be good to go for Sunday. Mouthful there.
Bars.
Yeah, right. Bars. That same game. Other side of the ball. Ezekiel Elliott. It sounds like he may suit up this week.
Yeah, looks like there's a chance he's going to play. But even if he plays, limit expectations. Pollard went bonkos a couple of weeks back. So he's probably going to get the bulk of the load. So Ezekiel Elliott had a grade 2 MCL sprain. So if the recovery is not proper, rehab is not proper, that can lead to an ACL injury. So a couple of years back, I think 2018 or 19, Cooper Kupp had the same injury. He had a grade 2 MCL, came back, tore his ACL, done for the year. So that's the risk Zeke is facing right now. So Dallas probably might play it safe. I know they're paying him like a lot of money. But even if he plays, I don't think he's going to get the same snap count as before.
Go for it, Ty. You're going to jump in.
This just has a similar vibe to Josh Allen for me. Like, why it's one game, and I go back to, was it 2 years ago? Maybe it was just last year where Cooper Rush started for Dak Prescott against the Vikings. If Mike McCarthy is so like, no, like we'll play it safe and we'll give him a rest, why isn't that the same for Zeke? And I get there's a bye week and all that stuff, but like, just give him the week off. There's no rush to get him back, and if you want to make a push in the playoffs, because we're getting to that point where we're starting to build up for playoffs, just rest him up, and you'll guarantee you'll still beat the Packers because the Packers are just garbage this year. So like, what's the point of putting him back in?
Yeah, I think it's the money, dude. They're paying him like $15 million a year. So
and it was Jerry Jones that came out today and said that like, oh, we're gonna try to get Zeke out there this week, and you're like, Jerry, just shut up, okay? You're the owner.
Even before getting injured, he had like what 3.2 yards per carry. He was not good. He had like one good game where he had 2 touchdowns, but Pollard is just more explosive. I don't know. I think Zeke, limit expectations. Again, it's a pretty big injury if it's not treated properly.
We'll get to starts of the week later in the episode where I will use all of this evidence as my case as Tony Pollard as a maybe potentially my start of the week. I won't spoil it, but
Okay.
one more player we want to cover, Rule, before we send you off here. Dameon Pierce, he popped up midweek, chest and shoulder injury. I believe he practiced in limited both Wednesday and Thursday. What are we looking at for this weekend? How likely is it that he'll be out on the football field?
So he was banged up with a rib injury. So typically if it's a chest shoulder, it's like rib goes from all the way from here to here. Right. So it was a rib injury. I think they were just really, really careful with him. He's their bell cow. He's their best player in the team right now. Especially, we don't know if Brandon Cooks is going to just like walk away angry. He's not injured, but Brandon Cooks might not play again. So Dameon Pierce is like their bell cow. They were really careful with him. He's good to go. I think he's going to play this week. I think fire him up. The Giants, 31st defense, overall defense. You have to play Dameon Pierce. I think he's going to get easy 20-plus carries. I think it's going to be a run game, both Saquon and Dameon Pierce. So it'll be fun.
Yes, you definitely beat the Giants on the ground. Tyler, I know you're thrilled to hear that as a Dameon Pierce manager in our Dynasty League, where you're thin at running backs.
Yes.
I mean, when I first saw, this matchup, when I was looking at props and all that kind of stuff, I was like, this game is going to set the league back by like 30 years because both teams are just going to continuously run the ball, and it's just going to be like, well, Saquon Barkley is going to do great, Dameon Pierce is going to do great, but other than that,
I'm avoiding everybody.
By the way, did you guys see what happened with Kenneth Walker? Almost, it was a scary situation. Apparently, he didn't have his passport going to Germany. So on Monday morning, I have Kenneth Walker in one of my teams. I open up, and he's like projected to get 5.83 points, and I'm like, what is happening? And then I looked. They were like, I think he got his passport literally this week, and he flew to Germany. What the hell?
Talk about a scare.
I know. I was like, wow, that was scary. Yep.
And I bet the Seahawks would still find a way to beat the Buccaneers because the Buccaneers are just that bad.
I don't know about it. I'm a Seahawks fan, but I don't know about it. I think Tom Brady, he came out and said he is like effing pumped about it. So we'll see. I don't know.
He may or may not be my start of the week at quarterback. Not to spoil all my picks, but all I'm saying is we'll talk about him more later too. Rule, anything that you brought to us that we may not have covered here in terms of injuries for this week?
I think like we covered like most of the main injuries. I know like Rodgers is dealing with the finger injury. I don't think it's fully ready yet. So, but again, if you have no other QB, you have to pay Rodgers, especially with so many buys coming in. Outside of that, like no major injuries. I think we covered like most of the fantasy relevant players today.
Awesome. Well, again, Rule, thanks for hopping on. Where can the people find you? Where can the people find the fantasy doctors? Because you all are pumping out a ton of great relevant injury content as it's happening. Where can people find
for sure. So you guys can follow me at Dorada_GoHawks. So that's a Seahawks plug. That's me. So you guys can follow me on Twitter, and of course, Fantasy Doctors on Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Those are our three main platforms. You guys can follow us. TikTok and YouTube is just our like where all the videos come in. Twitter is more of like a message board for us. So follow us on TikTok and YouTube. Get all the injury updates from Dr. Jesse Morse, and you can follow Jesse Morse at Dr. Jesse Morse on Twitter as well.
Phenomenal. Yes, you all are pumping out great content. It was awesome when you had reached out to us and said, hey, let's get you on our show. It's like, well, great. You got to get on ours because we got plenty of injury news to talk about. We can use your insights.
100%, dude. Happy to hop on in whenever you guys need me. Again, thanks for the opportunity, guys, and good luck this week.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Raul. Thanks for your time, man.
Thanks, man. Yep.
Well, again, we want to thank Raul for jumping on with us tonight. Really glad to make that connection with him. When he had reached out to us to come on his show a few weeks back, that was kind of like a no-brainer of like, we love talking props, and like, oh wait, we have a massive segment where you can come talk about injuries on our show. Mutually beneficial. So no, we love Raul again. Thanks for hopping on. But Tyler, let's turn the corner to starts of the week for week 10. And per usual, I'm going to let you start with quarterbacks. I bullied you into this one. I'm disappointed. It took you 2 tries. I put this one on a silver platter for you. And it took me bullying you into making this your start of the week. I couldn't believe it.
I thought it was obvious. So maybe I do need to say it just so it's spoken.
People still have questions on if they should or not.
Who was the quarterback won last week? Who was the quarterback that broke Michael Vick's single game record for most rushing yards by a quarterback? Who was that?
My start of the week. It was my start of the week last week.
It was your start of the week. Wait, are you talking about Bussin Fields? You talking about Bussin Fields?
Justin Fields, baby.
Yeah, Justin Fields is my start of the week. And again, that may seem obvious, and you're going to catch a theme with all of my starts. They seem pretty straightforward. But I'm going to highlight just the matchups of the week because there's some really good matchups this weekend. So starting with Justin Fields. Going up against the Lions defense. It does not need to be stated anymore how porous this Lions defense is. Now you're going to bring in, I shouldn't say bring in because they're going to Chicago.
Right.
Detroit is going to Chicago where they are going to be taking on arguably the hottest player in fantasy football at the moment because the man has been quarterback 2 since week 4. I want to say like the 4th overall player over that stretch as well. Like
he's been so freaking good.
So I don't remember which episode it was, but Lucas, you said it best. I still don't believe in Justin Fields as the NFL quarterback being able to lead this team through the future. But for right now in fantasy football, he is that dude. He is in your lineup, locked and loaded. There is no switching him out. He's going to give you 25.
I believe he's my quarterback 7 on the week. If I remember my rankings correctly. He was in my top 10, if not my top 7.
So for this week, of all playable quarterbacks, I have him as my quarterback 4.
Yeah, where do I have him at?
You also have him at number 4.
Oh, that's what's up, baby. Top 4 play this week.
Fields, top 5 this week.
I mean, seriously. I don't want to spoil props for us later.
Oh, you peaked.
No. I didn't peak. No. I don't know if it's actually there, but his rushing line 59.5 on Underdog. Promo code fellas. What? Over. Like that against the Lions, that is a no-brainer. Yeah, Justin Fields. He absolutely should be in your lineups this week. I don't think that's too obvious because I think people are still going to ask questions like, should I start Tom Brady or Justin Fields this week? But seriously, like Justin Fields is still on the cusp of like, I have a stud. Should I start him over my stud? And my answer is going to be yes for every quarterback but 3 this week, I believe.
Yeah, every quarterback except Josh Allen, which
maybe I would if he doesn't play. But if he plays, I couldn't possibly ever do that.
Mahomes.
Yeah, I'd still play Mahomes.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, still play Jalen Hurts.
But then you're playing Fields over Tua, Kyler, Dak, Tom, Geno, Kirk, Justin, Trevor, Daniel, Jared, Jimmy,
over all
Matthew,
those guys.
Russell, Jacoby. Well, yeah, the list goes on.
All those guys. Yep. I stand behind that. You brought up one of my starts of the week. I actually brought him up. But my start of the week, since it's not Justin Fields, and I kindly gifted that start of the week to Tyler this week. Tom Brady. Father Brady. The GOAT is due. Okay? The greatest quarterback of all time is due for a big game. 4 quarterbacks have scored 20-plus fantasy points against the Seahawks this year. That doesn't seem like a lot off the tongue. But Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert, I believe, have both scored 22-plus fantasy points in 2 of Seattle's past 3 games. And it's not like Tom Brady hasn't been throwing the football. Okay? 40-plus passing attempts in every game since week 2. That is 7 straight games of Tom Brady chucking the football a ton. In 4 of those games, he's thrown the ball 49 plus times. He's averaging 306 passing yards since week 3, excuse me. Like, I don't care how bad Seattle's run defense is, right? Because that's the thing. People are like, oh, Leonard Fournette, he's probably going to be a smash play this week. like for how bad Seattle's run defense has been, like the Tampa Bay run game hasn't been that much better. It's not like Tampa Bay's had a decent run game to build on this year. Like they are a pass. I don't want to use the words of fantasy footballers. I believe I heard this statement from them, and I'm paraphrasing it, but like the Tampa Bay offense is set up the pass to run the football, not set up the run to throw the football. Like they throw the football to establish their run game, which seems very backwards, but like that's part of the issue. This offense hasn't been scoring touchdowns, but I think Brady has his first multi-touchdown game since week 4. I think big game for Buccaneer players this week. Chris Godwin, I'm looking at you. It's time for you to get in the end zone after seeing 70-plus targets with no touchdowns. I think Chris Godwin gets in the end zone this week. He was almost my start of the week at wide receiver. Smash play, Tom Brady. I think he bounces back huge this week in Munich. You better believe we're releasing a video tomorrow on TikTok that's going to hype up that Munich game, and you better believe Tom Brady's going to be in that video. So, Tom Brady, my start of the week at quarterback. Let's move on to running backs. Ty, you went Justin Fields at quarterback. I went Tom Brady. Who do you have at running back for your start of the week?
Another obvious start. But Dameon Pierce is like running back 1 territory this week.
Yeah, you had him really high in your rankings this week. I was kind of shocked by that. Not shocked, but like higher than I had him, for sure.
You had him at 12.
Shut up, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, brother, I haven't checked my rankings in a minute.
I had Pierce at 11. Cameron was the Debbie Downer and put him at 16.
That's what it was.
Which is hilarious to me because after what we saw against the Eagles, shoo, that is a bad man wanting to run over people. That looks really nice, and he's not just a tryhard. Some of you know what I'm talking about. At you, Lucas Wenzel. But here's the thing. He now gets the Giants, okay? And the Giants' defense has been relatively solid this year, except against the run. They're allowing the 8th most rushing yards on the year. And again, I know that that Dameon Pierce didn't have any receiving work against the Eagles. But he had almost 140 rushing yards. That's 14 points. He falls into the end zone like I think he could this week. That's instantly 20 points.
Yep.
Obviously, you're starting Dameon Pierce, but it needs to be stated that this could be the week that we wish we saw last week, where he's getting heck of carries, heck of yards, and he finds the end zone.
Heck of touchdowns, right? Yeah, I was waiting for that.
He gets not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5.
Count them up.
That's it.
Dameon Pierce.
Fire him up.
No, I like that start of the week for Dameon Pierce. I'm rolling with one that might seem I shouldn't say might seem a little bit dicey, but Tony Pollard. He's a smash play if Zeke doesn't play, but as we heard from Rahul earlier, it sounds like Zeke is probably going to suit up this week. I still want to start Tony Pollard though, because here's the thing about Green Bay. They efficient rushing has been like their absolute weakness this year. And efficiency is the name of Tony Pollard's game, right? Green Bay allowing the 2nd most rushing yards and the 6th most yards per carry. You know who's going to eat that up? Tony Pollard, who is one of the most efficient rushers in the NFL, right? So I don't love a ton of running back matchups this week that aren't like super obvious names. Like Dameon Pierce, I think was like on the border enough where you could probably get away with it. But like Saquon Barkley gets Houston, great. Christian McCaffrey gets the Chargers, great. Leonard Fournette gets the Seahawks, wonderful, right? Like then you look at like the Lions and Bears, will they play each other? Like I'm not comfortable making Jamal Williams my start of the week. I'm not comfortable making any Bears running back my start of the week because I don't know which one's going to have the better game. But Tony Pollard against the Packers this week in a cold game, I think they could keep it on the ground. I think they could just let Tony Pollard run all over them. I'm in on Tony Pollard this week. I think he has borderline running back 2 written all over him this week.
Love it.
Dameon Pierce, Justin Fields, your 2 starts thus far, Tyler. Wide receivers. I really like your wide receiver start of the week.
And I hate to disappoint you, but I'm changing it on the fly to someone that you may like a little bit more.
Well, it depends. Who is it?
Someone by the name of Brandon Ayuk.
Interesting. Explain.
So, as I'm stalling, looking up stats and stuff, Brandon Ayuk is currently the wide receiver 22 on the year. But over the last 3 weeks, and he's coming off of a bye weeks, but the previous 3 weeks that he played, do you know where he ranked amongst wide receivers from weeks 6 to 8?
He was top. Had to be top 12.
You want to up it a little bit?
Shut up. Top 10.
Up.
This makes my heart happy. Top 8.
More.
No way. Is he top 5?
He's top 5.
Oh.
You want to take it one step further?
No, he wasn't top 3.
He was top 3.
Oh. I love that man.
He was the wide receiver 3 from weeks 6 to 8. And this was with Christian McCaffrey in some of those games. If I'm not mistaken, they had McCaffrey for the Chiefs game. He put up 15. They had McCaffrey against the Rams, and Ayuk put up 20. Okay, points per game. Ayuk was the wide receiver 7, averaging 21 points a game. Why would you not expect? I'm not going to sit here and say you should expect top 5 numbers, just like what we saw before the bye. No. But what I am saying is the man that was targeted the 5th most amongst wide receivers in that 3-week span before the bye, the guy that was averaging over 20 points a game, you need to put him in your lineup against a Chargers defense that is struggling still. And I know that Chargers defense has been relatively good against wide receivers. That's because they don't really stop anyone on the ground. And there are only a handful of teams that it doesn't really matter who they're matched up against. They will still beat you no matter how good you are. This Niners team is one of those teams. They will beat the Chargers on the ground, and they will pummel them through the air as well. You must start Brandon Ayuk this week. Expect a top 20 stat line from him this week.
I think that's doable. I think you have to keep in mind Debo is coming back this week. He was without Debo for at least one of those games.
True.
But, I mean, adding McCaffrey, I mean, that's like adding Debo basically. So there are a lot of mouths to feed there. You do have Kittle, you do have Debo, you do have McCaffrey. But, I mean, Ayuk's been killing it this year. He's been quietly killing it. And, yeah, he was one player who, before draft season, was climbing up our draft board, and he's returning on ADP thus far.
Yeah, I will say this, too. I was going to say Chris Olave.
Yeah, I love Chris Olave this week.
That should be widely known as the only wide receiver pretty much. Now he gets the Steelers, but yeah, I like Ayuk more than than Olave this week. And my rankings won't say that, but the more that I look at it and I think about it, I like Ayuk more than Olave this week.
And I really like Chris Olave this week. I have him as a top 15 option. My start of the week, though, Juju Smith-Schuster, baby. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs, baby. Juju Smith-Schuster over the past 3 weeks, 5 of 5 for 113 yards and a touchdown. 7 of 8 for 124 and a touchdown. 10 receptions on 12 targets last week for 88 yards. He has been a top 10 wide receiver in each of those games. He has been a top 10 wide receiver the past 3 weeks. Jacksonville is allowing... Go ahead. You were going to jump in?
I was just going to take a mini victory lap, on behalf of the fellas because, there was too many people saying you can't be a wide receiver 1. He's too injury prone. And look at him now. We told you.
We also did tell you to potentially capitalize on his value after his first big game. But if you went and got something like a stud, though, I also can't blame you for
Understandable.
That. Right.
Understandable.
But Jacksonville's allowing the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers this year, the 10th most to slot wide receivers. Juju has been top 20 in slot reps over the past, how many weeks, Ty?
4 weeks, 6 to 9, so 4 weeks.
There we go. He's been top 20 in slot reps over the past 4 weeks. 12th most receiving yards allowed to wide receivers this year as well. has Jacksonville done? That's not how that sentence was supposed to be finished. But I think this game, it's late Friday. Ty and I are all over the place. I think this game could be sneaky high scoring. Vegas has this line super high for the over this week, the over under. I'm not saying I'd lean the over, but that gives me the inkling that like this game could be 50 plus points between the Chiefs and Jags. So I will take another big game from Juju this week. All right, Ty, let's wrap it out here. Tight end starts of the week. I love your tight end start of the week. I mean, this is well known, but the story is what makes it your start of the week.
I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. My start at tight end this week is TJ Hawkinson, and again, that's obvious. But the only reason why you fire him up is because I don't just freely, just on a whim, just buy jerseys. Lucas can attest to this. Within the half hour of the Vikings game ending against Washington, a TJ Hawkinson jersey was purchased by yours truly. Okay, I bought this man's jersey after his first game as a Viking. Fire him up. Expect a top 3 tight end finish from TJ Hawkinson because he's a huge part of this offense already. Kirk trusts him a ton. He's just a big target, and Kirk loves a big target. You start TJ Hawkinson because I bought
because he bought the jersey, not because he should be in your lineup automatically. But this is true. I was over at Ty's house. We were watching the Vikings game last week, and I was going nuts because I love TJ Hawkinson. I have been a believer in TJ Hawkinson. So when he was traded to Minnesota, I'm like, it's my new uncle. Like, Uncle Hawk, what's up, man? And I kid you not, the game finishes, and I jokingly said at the time, like, I might have to get a TJ Hawkinson jersey now. And I was like, if I were to get one, I would, go on DHgate and get one. 20 minutes after that, Ty just kind of looks at me and just flips his phone around. Yep, wouldn't you know, from NFLshop.com. Not an ad. TJ Hawkinson jersey was purchased. A legitimate one. Yep, I can attest. There's story time with the fellas this week. My start of the week. Greg Dulcich, the big D. I'll let you decide if that's a euphemism. In 3 games this year, Tyler's out. In 3 games this year, Dulcich has scored double-digit fantasy points and has finished as a top 12 tight end, with 2 of those being top 10 finishes. These don't just grow on trees. And Ty, you brought up the good point before we started that Greg Dulcich is a rookie tight end, and typically he struggles, or rookie tight ends typically struggle to adapt to the league. The thing is, though, like, Russ has just been using the tight end at like a weirdly high rate this year compared to normal. Like, we have never seen Russ target tight ends at the rate that he has this year. Tennessee's allowing the 12th most fantasy points to tight ends, the 4th most receiving yards, and the 5th most yards per reception. That sounds like music to my ears for Greg Dulcich, who I don't want to say he's been big play dependent, but there have been weeks where he has 4 receptions for 62 yards. Like, he's not just a line of scrimmage guy. He is a go rack up yards down the field kind of guy as well. So I love Greg Dulcich this week. I have him in a ton of DFS lineups this week. He's a value at 3,400 on most platforms that I've been looking at. That's it. It's an absolute steal, man. He is in so many DFS lineups for me this week. Greg Dulcich is my start of the week. That wraps out starts of the week. Ty had Justin Fields, Dameon Pierce, Chris Olave, and TJ Hawkinson. My starts of the week were Tom Brady, Tony Pollard, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Greg Dulcich. Ty, let's wrap out this episode the way we always do, with player props, brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. They host everything from pick'ems, where you can pick higher or lower on a player's stat line, rivals, where you pin 2 players against each other and choose which player will have the higher or lower stat line. They have daily drafts. You can come draft against us every day, where you can draft a weekly team to win a share of a prize pool. Underdog has everything you could ever want. You can sign up using the link down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are listening to get a 100% instant match on your first deposit, or you can use the promo code FELLAS, FELLAS, to do the same. I pass it over to you, good sir. Take it away. Let's chat player props here. And most of these are a secret for me this week. I don't know many of them. I saw the first one because I scrolled just a bit too far.
Yep. As Lucas alluded to, there are rival picks, and we don't have any rival picks this week. And
Wop wop.
not because there aren't any that we don't like.
There just aren't many out right now.
There are just not many out at the moment, and it's hard to choose from the ones that are out. So instead, we loaded up on the Pick'em player props.
Love that.
We got 8 of them that we'll go through. Rapid fire. Just bang, 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 bang. So,
love it.
First one, starting off. Saquon Barkley at 97.5 rushing yards against the Houston Texans. Lucas, over, under.
I hate this line because it's so good. This is like a really freaking good line. I was on, Rahul mentioned it earlier, I was on the Fantasy Doctors podcast, Fantasy Doctors show, earlier this week. And this was a line that Rahul had brought up on the show, was Saquon Barkley. I lean the over. I'm not going to include this in a lot of my parlays, though, because this is one where like Saquon Barkley could rush for 90 yards and have an awesome fantasy day, but he wouldn't hit that 97.5, right? So I would lean the over. I'm not going to include it in a ton of plays, though.
Over the last 3 games, Saquon Barkley has 22, 24, and 20 rushing attempts. So he's getting just around 22 rushing attempts a game. You give him 4 yards a carry, that puts him at 88. So essentially what this line at 97.5 is asking, can he rip off 1 or 2 runs over 10 or 15 yards?
Against the Texans, I totally think so. Like Miles Sanders was at what? He was at 97 exactly last week. 93. Okay. And that's one where like if Miles Sanders can do it, I think Saquon can probably hit that mark. I don't want to use that Miles Sanders as a barometer, but like that's why I lean the over. I'm not excited to like I'm not confident in parlaying it, but I would lean the over.
Indubitably. And if I'm trying to remember, who did the Texans play before the Eagles again? Who was that again?
I don't recall off the top of my head, actually.
Oh, that's right. It was the Titans.
Oh, yeah.
It was the Titans.
Derrick Henry. Have yourself a day.
Yeah. Then the week before that, it was...
You actually know. Oh, you were actually trying to remember. I'm like, you're
that
just
one,
doing a bit.
No, that one I totally blanked on. I was like, oh, wait a second. Oh, shoot. So, needless to say, this Houston Texans run defense is awful. Awful. So, as I'm just looking it up just to confirm, they played, drumroll please, the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, and Josh Jacobs had himself a day.
Had 140-something rushing yards. So,
yeah, I'll take Saquon over.
If you are going to take the over, but by no means is this a like lock it every single parlay you've got kind of
right,
line.
Right, exactly.
Next line we're going to talk about is Christian McCaffrey.
Ooh.
His combined rushing and receiving yard total is at 116.5, and earlier today it was 112.5.
Oh, so that's rising even. Oh,
so
brother.
That went up.
Oh, brother. Playing the Chargers, who are also atrocious against running backs. Mm-hmm. What's McCaffrey been at in previous weeks? Like my gut says to go over, but my gut is also like tentative on that.
So first game, he went 38-24, but that was unlimited snaps.
Yep.
Following week against the Rams, he had 18 carries for 94 yards, 8 receptions for 55 yards.
Okay, so he hit it there.
Yep, against the Rams.
Yes, right.
His individual lines, he's at 38.5 receiving yards and 76.5 rushing yards.
Okay.
So that puts him at 115 combined based on his 2 individual lines.
I'll take the over on it. I feel like I'd be silly not to. I just look at some of his other lines from this year, and it's just like I feel like I'd be silly not to take that line in a better offense than the Carolina Panthers.
He might honestly hit his combined yardage on rushing alone.
Yeah, the Chargers have been piss poor against running backs this year.
To put up 94 yards on 18 carries against the Rams, that's pretty dang good.
No kidding.
So against the Chargers, I lean over as well. It does kind of have a Barkley vibe to it of just like...
Right. I'm not going to correlate that in a ton, but that's one that you look at and it makes you think.
Mm-hmm. Bingo. Next up we got is Justin Fields, who we talked about earlier. My start of the week. His combined rushing passing yard total, 240.5.
Over. Like, I don't have to think twice about this one. This Detroit defense is just so bad in all facets. Like, Justin Fields, he might hit 200 yards for like the third time this year. Like, he could in this game. And you're asking him for 40 rushing yards. Are you kidding? I already said I like his line at 59.5 rushing yards, so I think he goes over 60 yards. That I'm looking for 180 passing yards then, and against the Lions, no issues. Yeah, I'll take Justin Fields over on combined yardage.
That
no
is
questions
lock
asked.
And loaded.
Yes,
right?
that's a lock and load for me. Most of Justin Fields' lines this week for me are lock and loads. I lean the rushing yards versus the combined yards.
Sure.
But like I the combined yards is almost equally as enticing.
Absolutely. Next up we got is Alvin Kamara, the guy that we got burned on last week on his receiving yard line, and we're going to go right back to it.
Yeah, I'm ready to get hurt again.
33.5 receiving yards
over
against the Steelers.
Over. The Saints sucked last week. Okay, like there was no reason Kamara should not have gotten more than 4 targets last week.
Yeah, at least 20 touches.
He should have had at least 6 targets last week, and he couldn't even hit 5. Like, that's misutilization in a game in which you're losing of your best player. I don't see them making that same mistake twice in a favorable matchup for Kamara. They do get TJ Watt back this week, though. That's something to keep in mind.
Which should almost help.
Right.
Kamara
that would be
out,
checkdowns. Right. That right. So like that's more so what I'm going for is like I don't necessarily think it impacts Kamara, but it is something to keep in mind if you're looking at that Saints Steelers game, trying to figure out how it's going to play out. TJ Watt will be back, but I don't think that impacts Kamara. Like, I think 7+ targets. I still think this week for Kamara. Like, I'm still in on that.
Bingo. Next up, we got Leonard Fournette.
Oh, brother, I hate.
72.5 combined yards.
Oh, not combined. I was ready for you to say rushing, and I was ready to scream under as loud as I possibly could. Combined. Oh, Lordy. I am not like, can I push this line? I don't want to take anything on it.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd push. I would avoid this line at all costs. This is a trap line.
Can I interpret?
You can interpret. You can try and talk me into whatever your opinion is, but like, I will not put anything on this line if my life depended on it.
This is an under.
I lean under. I hear that, and I'm like, Lenny just has not. Like, I think he's just going to continue losing work to Rachaad White. Like, Rachaad White is a real threat, people. Like, we need to acknowledge that. We can't just be like, oh, Rachaad White, that's a nice stash. Like, Rachaad White isn't going to be a stash for much longer. Mm-hmm. Like, I firmly believe that.
Over the last 3 games, Leonard Fournette on rushing has gone 8, 9, and 9 carries. His yardage has gone 19, 24, 19. The receiving work is kind of there, but he doesn't get a whole lot of yardage on his receiving work. He went 7, 34, and 41. So if you add up the past 3 weeks on total yards, he had 26 against Carolina. He had 58 against Baltimore, and he had 60 against the Rams.
It's the Seahawks, though. The Seahawks defense is awful. Just to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Are they awful against the pass, against the run?
Well, they're awful against the run, but like, wouldn't you think Lenny could, like, is it unreasonable to think Lenny gets 45 rushing yards and then he only needs 30 receiving yards? Like, that's my counter of like, Like, I could see Lenny getting 10 totes, averaging 4 yards a carry, and Brady sprinkles him with 4 targets for 35 yards. That's my counter.
How do you feel about 43.5 rushing yards for Lenny?
Like, I still lean the under. Like, I don't want to touch Lenny at all for anything whatsoever. Like, I don't want to. Like, I don't think this Tampa Bay run game is any good, and I think Rachaad White is a legitimate threat. Rachaad White looks better than Leonard Fournette right now.
This is just the fact.
And Lenny kind of mad he wasn't on the field more. Like, the Bucs are ready to take him off the field. Lenny's not too happy about it.
Yeah. I think this goes back to the point of what you said, though. I shouldn't say you. What the footballer said that you heard and that you brought to this podcast. They use the pass to establish the run, which sounds backwards, and it kind of is backwards. Fournette, because of that, is suffering.
Which he shouldn't, because Lenny's been a pass-catching machine. But all of a sudden, they're just not using him that way anymore. Or they're getting Rachaad White more of his touches where he would be utilized.
Mm-hmm. So, again, you can push this line, but I think it's fair to say we lean under, but we don't want to risk it.
Yes, I'd push, but I would lean under if you told me my life depended on it.
Next guy, let's bring it back up. Let's bring the optimism back up. We're going to talk about your start at tight end in Greg Dulcich.
Over. I don't even know what the line is.
So earlier today, his line was at 40.5 receiving yards, and now it's up to 42.5.
Really, I shouldn't act so shocked that it went up 2 yards, but the fact that it's increasing, I guess, kind of surprises me. Yeah, I would lean over here on the big D, Greg Dulcich. Russ has just been using these tight ends at just a weirdly high rate this year, and I don't see how that changes this week. The matchup with Jacksonville, it's not super. No, again, Jacksonville, they're playing Tennessee. I already laid out the matchup with Tennessee. I love the matchup with Tennessee. He's gone over that in every game this year. 44, 51, 87. Too low against a good matchup with Tennessee. Yeah, give me the over on Greg D, baby.
Yep, I lean the over as well on Dulcich. I feel like that line is a little too low for how often this offense utilizes its tight ends. Second to last line that we're going to talk about here, Jeff Wilson, the newest running back. I shouldn't say newest, but was acquired by the Dolphins technically, right. Was acquired by the Dolphins at the trade deadline. Came in week 1, first week as a Dolphin, got the same amount of carries as Raheem Mostert, but he got the receiving work over Raheem Mostert. And Jeff Wilson's receiving yard line this week is at 8.5.
It feels like a trap line. I know you really like it. I think it's a trap line, though. With no Chase Edmonds, it feels like Jeff Wilson is starting to take over more of that role because Raheem Mostert certainly didn't catch any passes last week. Mm-hmm. So that's where I would lean the over on Jeff Wilson there. That's another one I'm not excited to put in too many lines, but as I'm looking through props, there's also not many I'm super thrilled on as of right now. So I will lean the over on that. That feels too low, but it also feels like a trap. So I'm sorting out my feelings upon hearing that.
I mean, here's the question. Does he get 2 catches?
Oh, yeah, and I think, right, and all it takes is 4 yards of reception.
Bingo. This is one of those lines where it's just so, the line is so low that it feels like it has to go over. It happened a couple weeks ago. Nick Chubb had a 7.5 yard receiving line. He got 1 pass for 14 yards, and boom, he's over just like that.
Right.
It's the quick hitter line. And if you can find a good one, I would think this Jeff Wilson line is, I think you fire it up.
A little too tasty.
Last one, Lucas, I think you know which line we're going to talk about here. It's a guy that probably is slowly but surely coming onto your jersey list.
Greg Dulcich? He's already on my jersey list. We just talked about him.
Jalen Waddle.
Over. I don't care what the line is because I know Vegas or Underdog or nobody is respecting this man enough.
Nobody. Quite literally nobody.
Which line are you going off of, though? Because there is one I definitely prefer to the other.
Well, let me double check what the Underdog line is.
If you're looking
69.5.
Yeah, over. Smash the over on that. Like, I am confidently over on that.
Which one are you looking at?
Well, no. That's the one I was looking at. But like, I've seen his receiving or his receptions total at like 5.5. I'm a little bit wary on that. I would much rather take the receiving yards. And if it's anything below 75, I'm in.
Do you think he scores this weekend?
I wouldn't bank on a score. But like the Browns have buttoned up against wide receivers the past few weeks. Like they've actually been sneaky really good. But I don't think it matters. This offense is too hot. Mike McDaniel, the only thing he wants to do is get the ball into Tyreek and Waddle's hands. That's all he wants to do.
You got it. So, again, just to recap, that finishes up the player props, and we'll recap it here. Saquon Barkley, we're feeling lean in the over, but we're not necessarily throwing it in our parlays. It's not a must-have parlay.
Right. It's not a must. Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey at 116.5 combined yards. Again, lean the over, but it's not one of those must-have plays.
Right.
Justin Fields at 240.5 total yards / 59.5 rushing yards. That is a must play over.
Yep.
You bet it, book it. Next up, Alvin Kamara at 33.5 receiving yards. Book it, over. Leonard Fournette, 72.5 combined. A little bit of a push, a.k.a. lean the under, but not one that we're forcing into our plays of the week.
Yep.
Greg Dulcich at 42.5 receiving yards. You want to help me out with this one, buddy?
Yeah, that's an over.
Yeah, it's an over. That's an over. Jeff Wilson, 8.5 receiving yards. I think that's one that you should put in your parlay this week. Lean the over on it. Jalen Waddle, the final locked and loaded line of the week at 69.5 receiving yards. Over.
Smash it. Like, smash it. Until they give Waddle a line at 75 receiving yards, smash the over.
You got it. So, again, all these lines are provided by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Go ahead and use the code FELLAS when you're signing up, and you get a deposit match up to $100, and it's
Instantly.
dollar for dollar.
Dollar for dollar.
So, again, just hear me out, right? Justin Fields rushing yards at 59.5, it's a lock. Alvin Kamara at 33.5 receiving yards, that's a lock. Jalen Waddle, 69.5, that's a lock. I'm going to sprinkle Jeff Wilson, 8.5 receiving yards on top. Deposit 10, you get $10 for free. You put down $20. Those 4 hit, guess what? You're walking away with 10 times your money. You're walking out with $200, just like that.
And you want to sprinkle Greg D on top of it? That'll 20x your money. 20 turns into 400. Like, this is what we're talking about. So, promo code FELLAS down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are listening to. Promo code FELLAS over on Underdog Fantasy. Love our friends over at Underdog. Ty's got the banner. If you're on YouTube.
I got the flag.
Ty, anything you want to add before we wrap out the show here?
Hey, come play with us on Underdog Fantasy. Let's see them 20 times. Let's see them 20-time wins.
20x wins. FF Fellas on Twitter. The FF Fellas on Instagram. Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok and YouTube, where you should be sub. Turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new videos are out. Subscribe to the podcast as well. We're so grateful for all of your support. We're nearing 200K on TikTok. Should go give us a follow over there as well. Thanks for tuning into another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Best of luck this weekend, and we will be back on Tuesday to recap everything Week 10 with you all. Deuces.
Deuces.